Welcome to the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I am your host, Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices. So Voices for Voices is the #1 ranked podcast and TV show where people turn to for expert mental health, recovery, and career advancement intelligence. Our TV show and podcast is all about teaching you insanely actionable techniques to help you prosper, grow your self-worth, and your personal brand. So if you are a high achiever or someone who wants more out of life, whether mentally, physically, or spiritually, why don't you make sure to subscribe to our TV show and podcast right now. As you can see, our TV show and podcast publishes episodes every week that focus on case studies, real-life examples, actionable tips, and in-the-trenches reports and interviews from subscribers just like you. If that sounds like something that could help you personally or professionally, then please make sure to join me by subscribing. So this episode today is going to be part 2 of the episode you saw last week. Our guest, Mr. Bill Zirzow, he is joining us again in studio, and we were having a very important discussion, and Bill was going through some important experiences, and we wanted to make sure that we gave that the proper time and attention. So Bill is going to, again, join us here in studio, and he's going to, the best we can, pick up from our last episode if that thought and that we were talking about how the Holy Spirit kind of comes in, and when we make things not about us first and we make things about us second, it frees our mind up to do great things.
Exactly. And to that point, I think what I was starting to share was one of the things that really hit me. So my daughter, Abby, struggles with the bipolar stuff. And there was one time in particular, so I think what we're sharing too, the stigma, and before anybody in our family was diagnosed, I'd be one of those people like, what's your problem? What are you depressed about? Just pray, whatever, all the stuff you hear, right? So we've been through a major transformation of understanding, what's really going on and how the true illness of all this, and you're not in control. Well, and that's a spiritual thing, right? We're not in control. That's the other big thing to deal with. So anyway, this little story that really kind of set me straight, even in the midst of all this, and this is before losing Ben, but it was in the throes of Abby, what was going on. There was one particular day that, we're learning all this, we're going through it, and she was really struggling. And I was having a hard time. I'm like, what's going on. Why are you still struggling so bad? Like, like we're having all these discussions, and you can't seem to stop it. And I know it had to be the Holy Spirit, because I get to work and I get slammed with a panic attack that I haven't had in 20 years. And I know, because I'm in the middle of this thing and I can't stop it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is God definitely putting this in me, because I just had this moment of arrogance and impatience and whatever other sin. And I was so humbled in that moment, and that kind of started to change too, that when, someone is, and I've been around people in the middle of, especially my daughter and Ben at times, struggling, and it's so hard if you're, I'm assuming, well, I know, because if it's not part of you or your family, you just don't understand it. And so anyway, that taught me a big lesson in understanding, like, look, you don't know what's going on, they can't control it, it's happening, and just like the grieving with my son, it's just being present. I felt like just being there to listen, try to be compassionately listening, actively listening, and being present. And so to this day, I know that's a really big thing. I can tell sometimes, especially with my daughter, she gets a little bit wound up. I really want to try to take a deep breath and pray and just kind of sit and be present. And 9 out of 10 times, she's very good after that, needed that. Well, and I needed that. When I was going through it, There's a guy in my office, and I'm like, I just need to sit and talk, dude, because I'm losing my mind right now, and I can't get it under control. And so anyway, that was kind of the rest of that story. So
and that's so important because us as men, guys, we're in our minds, I think, a little bit thinking that we have to know everything. We need to have the answer, the antidote, and to have you in a leadership position that has gone through a panic attack or more. Our Voices for Voices Gala that we hold each October, we were lucky to have Mr. Dan Flowers, the president CEO of the Akron-Kent Regional Food Bank, as our keynote speaker, and he was sharing stories of his 20 years as the head of a food bank that has, I think, 600 or 700 partners that they help feed the community. And he mentioned how he was going through panic attacks at a certain time for many years. And our show, which now we're in the TV studio, but when we got started, we were in it was still a studio, but more of an audio recording studio. And I didn't know him from anybody. I just reached out to him on LinkedIn and said, hey, you're a CEO, you're a leader. I'd love to ask you some questions about the food bank and leadership and jobs and interviewing. And he came and he said, I don't know what it is. He goes, I don't know you, but I feel really comfortable talking. And he said he shared for the first time publicly that these panic attacks had happened and how he said, I never missed a day of work. I just went on. I went on, and it finally got to the point where he reached out for help, and he kind of took that ego and put it aside as a guy, given the experiences that he had been through. And I think that's also important, regardless if we're on medication, we're seeing a counselor, we're not. Just as guys in general, that we just go through things and we're kind of looked at society, looks at us that we should have answered all the problems, and we shouldn't be nervous. We should just be able to handle everything that life throws at us and pivot. And I think that's important with you being a leader to share with individuals too that are out there that are also leaders, or saying like, oh, okay, that's just common Justin out Hayes talking about his experience, but to hear real live leaders that have and are going through and how that understanding can be difficult is I think important for people to say like, okay, maybe I will seek help, or maybe I will try to understand and do some research instead of that. We'll just go for a walk, just do the top 5 things to do when you're stressed is to do these things. And it's like, I tried them and they didn't work. and it's hard, like, suck it up. Why are you crying? I mean, that was something that my wife was telling me at the time, and that was just that expectation of like, why can't you just power through this? Like, like, what's the deal? You're making a big deal out of nothing. And I was very ashamed and felt guilty at the time in 2017 when all this was kind of coming ahead for me. And now, and your son Tommy can attest from, at Walsh and teaching, and even sharing with Dr. Collins, the president of Walsh, who also was able to come on and share his kind of mental health background of. Anyway, so Dr. Collins had mentioned, he said, keep doing what you're doing, keep sharing. I know you're teaching, marketing and business courses, but these are, they're still students and they're going through things. Whether if they're being away from home and they're going through relationships, and and we know that life and death they continue on regardless of if we're at class or we're driving or on vacation. Right. And that really made me feel good just as a person to say, like, obviously don't spend the whole class talking about that, but as you're talking about real life scenarios, bring that human element. And that's one of the things that I've really had comfort in with that platform, to be able to share and say, yeah, I'm an instructor, but I'm also going through things. Like, I'm up here, but I'm also have anxiety, and here are things, and I don't want to take medication, but I am, and alcohol was so big to me, and now I haven't had any drinks since 2017, and I think the more that we share just these experiences, that they're going to help one person. I think if we help one person, which I know we're doing,
right.
That's really, at the end of the day, that's really all we can do, is because we know we can't take the things with us. We can't take the money with us. We can't, there's no U-Haul,
Right.
following us.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to be able to take those things. So why don't we think of how we can serve a greater good? And that's why I'm so glad that you're sharing your spiritual journey with us, because I think that's so important. And then whether somebody's a believer or not, find that something and go after it, and put your, we hope, God, Jesus, that's what we hope.
Right.
But there's something else that's really helping you be present and take in the moment of, okay, I'm standing here, I'm taking a bite of food, like little stuff like that. People are like, oh, that's ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
but those types of things help really ground from, what am I going to do in 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years?
Right.
And so I just want to thank you for actually coming on and being a part of this in 2 episodes, but just the transparency, because I think that's something that we don't see enough, and especially from a leader in the community.
Well, and like I said, it's an honor to be here, and listening to you. I mean, I can't help but think the suffering you went through, and now the fruit, that it's producing, and you wouldn't have this fruit without the suffering. And how much is that like Christ's suffering for us, and obviously the ultimate fruit of eternal life and resurrection. So yeah, in our family, like we said, the suffering that we've gone through, and I can't help but feel Ben's intercession, and I've seen so many relationships restored, the things that maybe we now will do. In fact, it's hard to even think of it differently. We had aspirations of retirement home, this and this sort of selfish thing, not always necessarily bad selfish stuff, but kind of. And now the dream is more, can we do this stuff to help other people? And it's just so much more satisfying internally. And I'm sure I know you feel it. I feel it. So yeah, I can't help. And one little, again, I tried to think of business and this related. And I was really big on goals. I mean, I got even when I was like in early college, I don't know why, I must have just been having a little gift. I would always write these goals down and everything. It could have been 10 years ago or so. I remember I thought, I don't know how long I'm going to live. And I'd have big house, more cars, boat. Well, I don't have all this stuff. But anyway, I just write these material kind of things down. And finally I thought, what am I doing? Like, the only real goal I have and want to have, and it's even way more pronounced now, is to be at peace on my deathbed. I mean, that would, and to your point, especially losing Ben, you see the stark reality. I mean, that's it. It's his life, it's his relationships, and so that's what it tells me. It's all about the relationships. It's not anymore about how many franchises we sell or markets we open. And again, those are good things, we've been given gifts, but in the right context and in the right order, and it's always going to be God first, and then, your husband roles, father roles, and then the business is down in here somewhere. So, and I take a lot of responsibility in the employees and the people that we have, and then have I been given that gift to also hopefully steward that and be the example, and to much that's been given, much is expected, and so sometimes, and that's still a big weakness. That needs a lot of work. But anyway, yeah, I can go on and on rambling, but no, I think it's what you're doing here, and you know what? It's funny, like when it's not funny, I don't want to use those expressions, but when Ben passed and we were sharing this, I had people say, like, man, no one's really, like the police, they go, the FBI, I met him and I had spent a weekend going through Ben's stuff and gave him all these files, and he goes, you don't realize how little people even do, like they won't, because there's shame and there's there's all this stuff with, like, And I'm like, I didn't even understand that. You know, I'm just like, what? We just want to stop somebody else from getting killed from this stuff. And so I think it's funny, like as you're saying, hey, it's nice I'm being transparent and all that. I don't think we know any other way. You know, you're just kind of like, and that, I guess that's the grace that, you know, if that is seen as humility, then it's because it's not from what I'm doing. It's just God saying, all right, we're all, you know, these events are happening in your life, and this is the way I'm taking you, and that's what we pray every day, right, to do His will. So I think, you know, in a lot of ways, that's that, not as, you know, a conscious thought of it. It's just natural that you want to, if you're going to serve God, you're going to just do these certain things. So anyway.
And a little bit tangentially, my father passed March 1st from a battle of cancer, and so we had some time to prepare, I guess, mentally a little bit. Yeah. But I never lost a parent and grandparents and friends and colleagues and those. And so bringing that home, like I mean, I'm still struggling a little bit with that, but to the point that we're only on Earth for a finite amount of time, and when luckily my dad was able to be at home and had hospice at home, and my sister and I and my mom, we were able to spend time with him even if he wasn't as mobile and coherent as was, and I found myself, once we got the diagnosis last July, that I couldn't even remember the last time I told my dad that I loved him. Like it's just one of those things, like, oh, like we just have this, we just know we love each other, and we don't say it, and just by doing actions of helping out in different times, and I am looking back now, and I'm grateful that I even had that time, because I was like, better late than never. And so then I started telling them, I love you, and here are things, growing up that they're still sticking with me, and I appreciate, and all these different things, and it still is tough to kind of think that they're not here with us physically. But you're right, when a person passes, their earthly body is not here, so you can't give them a hug, you can't maybe text or call, and no matter how much or how little we did before, and I think for our listeners and our viewers, that if they're in a position, whatever animosity that somebody may hold for whatever reason, that we may say, oh, well, we'll talk about that next week, or I'll bring it up at the next family function. Well, that may not come with that person, and as hard as it is, and as awkward, and that's kind of how I felt, like, well, I'm going to tell my dad I love him? Well, of course he knows that.
Right.
And I think that's part of just that emotional side of, okay, to your point of, being on your deathbed and wanting to be at peace, that I wanted my dad to be at peace if that was something he was waiting for to hear, or to hear me recount different stories or read different passages from the Bible that he was reading and that were most important as he was coming to grips with it himself. And it's hard. I mean, life's hard, and we're obviously not taking things with us, and there's people that are coming and they're gone, and to your point, serving others, that when you and I are gone, that there's still going to be relationships and things that are going to still continue on, and so why not work on that as kind of like that first goal, and then everything else kind of falls into place. And it sounds like that's how things have been, and I don't use Ben, but how they've worked out for you once you made that choice years ago, that to follow Christ, and everything kind of coming second to that. It's like, hey, if I do this thing or this act, then these other things that I'm doing, they're going to fall in place. It might not be in my time, but they're going to happen when they're needed. Exactly.
Yeah, and sorry to hear about your dad too, by the way.
Thank you.
And the part of this journey too is I've been saying that I feel more present in the invisible and the eternal, rather than the visible and the worldly. And I think to your point, like even just recently, how many times especially after communion, I thank Lord for the 28 years I had with Ben. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking, and just recently I'm like, no, thank you for Ben now. Yeah. Like he's present now, he's with us, and it's that, again, that belief and that faith. I don't know if any fans of The Chosen, but we happen to be big Chosen fans. And I just keep, and again, it's just because of the filter I have on right now because we're going through, but so many of those stories in the Bible all seem about belief and faith. It's all like, do you really believe this? And so I think knowing your dad's with you right now, is such a comforting, I would think, and joyful thought that maybe you can't have that physical hug, but you definitely have a spiritual hug, So that's given me a great peace, to deal with this and go through the grieving and hopefully to share, with other people too. So anyway.
Great. Are we missing anything? Is there something that you want to add? I mean,
how many episodes can I do? No, I'm kidding. I'll talk forever.
Yeah. You can plug the Town Money Saver, or how people can learn about your organization.
Sure. Well, I will say one thing too. I've been involved with some different ministries,
Please.
And even though I think Town Money Saver is Sacred Heart Enthronement is a big thing that affected our family. I actually was very involved with the ministry then. The guy who got me involved there. WelcomeHisHeart.com is the website you can go to and get more information on that. Town Money Saver, we're in about 80-some cities throughout Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky now. And you can get your coupons, and the local, and we're there really to help local businesses. That's the other thing. It is a cool model and the franchising aspect offers a lot of flexibility, for the family, so you can hopefully do some of those things we're talking about. And again, getting involved with the community. And how much of I think what we're talking, that might be something to point out too. And as we talk, I think it's a common thread. We were created for community, and that leaning on one another and what you just said, when you're alone, and I'm over here and I'm like, I'm not succeeding in the way I want it. Ben suffered horribly, and sometimes I feel guilty of this, that, he had such a high stand, like a goal. Like he loved Elon Musk, he really wanted to be up. And it was crushing at times, like it felt like, I think he felt defeated, or he felt like he wasn't. And so it is like this dual, we just watched that St. Ignatius of Loyola, and it was really beautiful. He at one point said, the church is this dualness constantly. There's this mercy and then this, holiness, that you're constantly, where you can get caught up in being the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all that stuff. So I think being in communion, being in community, it's a humbling, and it's, again, leaning on one another, but it's so peaceful and comforting that you're loved, and you don't have to be the CEO guy. I think I'm tired of leadership stuff, to be honest with you. I think we need more fellowship stuff. Like I want to follow Christ. I don't need to be the leader guy or whatever, even though I try to present that, but no, I'm kidding. But anyway.
Me too.
That's Tommy. He's like, Dad thinks he's leader of everything. But anyway, so anyway, to your point, I think too, the only other thing I want to mention is at 60, I just turned 60, and you said earlier too, time. It's funny, we have a finite amount of time, and we don't know when it is, right? And in Ben's case, it was a lot quicker, unfortunately, but to me, it almost speaks like right now, like you can go home, I get tired, I just want to put the news on and get angry. No, I'm kidding, but just put the news on, whatever, and it's like there's someone that probably needs your ear, and needs you to listen and needs you to be present. And I think that's something I'm becoming more aware of at an older age, to say, so if there's any message or anything, and I think, again, Mother Teresa, how a smile can impact somebody, to just take a moment and be present. And I think that's what Ben really did too. He never, it would be that person first, or whatever they needed, and to a fault, it would, he might not even get his schoolwork done or something else. But, so I think, that when you put God first, and then you recognize to love one another like he loved us, that you really, optimize our time. Try to be there, whether it's even just your wife, your children, your friends, whatever. Anyway, so that's Other than that, I have a lot, but I'll try to wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of our board of directors and everybody associated with Voice for Voices, thank you so much for coming. I know it's quite a drive and a busy schedule for you, but we really are grateful that you took time, especially double time, to be here and share, because helping others is something that, if you asked me 10 years ago, I'd be like, helping Justin is like what I want to do, and there are pieces of that, but what really makes me feel good is being able to touch somebody's life, and hopefully in a positive way, and to have you share your experiences is just really humbling, and want to thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me on, and like your CEO guy said, you're real easy to talk to, so it's a real blessing. Your mannerism, your personality, and I know Tommy was really lifted up when he learned that you were sharing. He brought it home, and we were lifted up as a family, just knowing that, hey, there's other people dealing with this, and there's a lot out there, but honestly, we're not really talking a lot to one another. So it was a real lift to us too. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. And thank you for watching, listening, joining us. Please like, subscribe, share this episode, and one of the over 120 plus episodes that we do have. Episode 106, again, is the episode you can find out more about my active recovery and my life, and how mental health really propelled me to want to start this organization, and on the quest to try to help 3 billion people over the course of my lifetime and beyond. And we're going to thank Mr. Bill Zirzow for joining us for this episode, as well as part 1. We just are so grateful to have somebody so transparent to share and to talk with us and to talk with you. And if you're able to, maybe you can be that person to somebody else. So when we close out and say, be a voice for you or somebody in need, maybe that somebody in need isn't able to share their voice in whichever way that they hope to. So again, be that ear, listen, and help others whenever we can. So until next time, I'm Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices. Thank you so much for joining us. Keep your eye out for future episodes, and please be a voice for you or somebody in need.